From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
I enjoy doing it. I enjoy very much with a good team of horses.
Planting time doesn't mean turning an engine for this farmer. Why horsepower is really all about horsepower for him.
Hey, stay tuned folks. Coming up, I'm going to tell you about 5 amazing older combines we ran across last week.
And the leaders of the U.S. and Canada making another push for USMCA.
It's the largest trade deal by far ever entered into, and we're very close to having finalized it.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. President Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau trying to show a united front in an effort to get a replacement for the North American Free Trade Agreement over the finish line. Trudeau visiting President Trump at the White House last week, both sides trying to bring attention to the new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. Mexico last week became the first of the 3 nations to ratify the deal. As for the U.S., it comes down to whether Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will bring to a vote a bill that would implement changes necessary to enact the plan. Now, Trudeau rejecting the idea of reopening the deal in order to make changes.
We still have some outstanding issues to resolve on the trade front, like the imposition of American duties on Canadian softwood lumber. Now, our industries depend on the flow of goods between our 2 countries. For instance, Canada is a stable and reliable source of uranium for American civil nuclear reactors. So at the end of the day, maintaining access is important for Canada and the U.S. alike. President Trump and I agreed to continue working together to address these issues, as well as other challenges we both face, like steel and aluminum dumping and other unfair trading practices.
I really believe that Nancy Pelosi and the House will approve it. I think the Senate will approve it rapidly. It's going to be very bipartisan. It's great for the farmers, manufacturers. It's really great for everybody. And unions. It's great for unions.
President Trump called the USMCA a phenomenal deal for America. The administration would like lawmakers to approve it before the end of the year. Even though the Prime Minister is touting USMCA, the Canadian dairy industry is still not pleased with the verbiage. The industry, vocal over the past couple of months, it is not fond of the agreement, saying the country is already giving up some of its dairy industry with other trade deals. They say USMCA with the United States is another direct hit to the dairy industry as the Canadians give up more market access to the United States in this deal as well. However, Canadian journalists anticipate USMCA to still be ratified within the country despite the dislike.
Canada is only a country of 35 million people. How much dairy product can we actually consume when we have our own domestic dairy industry at the same time? So I do think it's going to hurt them. I've talked to a lot of Canadian dairy people, and there is concern, but they know that they got a challenge ahead and they got to figure it out. The industry is still kind of looking for what their solution will be going forward. But I think reality has set in. It's USMCA is going to go ahead, and so it's up to the Canadian dairy industry to figure out what their long-term solution is.
The verbiage in the new deal changes the rules with Class 7 milk. If you remember, Canada curbed imports of U.S. Class 7 milk into the country. Co-ops and processors had to drop U.S. dairies due to the limitation of imports to Canada. And at the same time, the U.S. dairy industry considers this deal a win. On another trade front, President Trump is scheduled to meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping later this week. The 2 sides meeting at the G20 summit, which is taking place in Osaka, Japan on Friday and Saturday. China's Commerce Ministry says officials on both sides are preparing for the meeting, but that threats and tariffs will not resolve trade tensions between the 2 biggest economies. The ministry spokesman said that, quote, if the U.S. insists on taking unilateral trade measures against China, it will definitely bring serious impacts on the economy of itself and the welfare of its people. Trade talks between the 2 countries stalled in May when the U.S. accused China of going back on earlier commitments. USDA reports cattle on feed are up 2%. The total, 11.7 million head. That's the highest June 1st inventory since USDA started tracking it back in 1996. Placements into feedlots in May total 2.06 million head, or 3% below last year. Marketing's 2.07 million head, up 1%. African swine fever has now been detected in another country, Laos. The country confirming the presence of ASF last week, prompting China to ban imports of pigs, wild boars, and related products from Laos. China also saying it would increase quarantine inspections of packages and baggage carried by tourists. The USDA is investing up to $75 million in an effort to control feral swine. Now, the program in response to the threat feral swine pose to agriculture, native ecosystems, and human and animal health. The first round of pilot projects in the program are going to be offered in 10 states, including Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, and Georgia. It's been determined those states have among the highest feral swine populations. This is not good news. A survey estimating beekeepers across the country lost just over 40% of their honeybee colonies in the last year. The loss is happening from April of last year to April of this year. The group saying winter losses, which were estimated at over 37%, were the highest since the survey began 13 years ago. Now, the survey was conducted by the Maryland nonprofit Bee Informed Partnership. Honeybees pollinate $15 billion worth of food crops in the U.S. every year. Summer has arrived, but it brought with it the ongoing problems from the spring. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman has more in today's Crop Comments. Mike.
Thanks, Clinton. What do you do when your fields are flooded? Well, some people are having a little fun with it. Check out this video shared by Nick Pierce. He lives in Calhoun County, Michigan, and he decided to have a little fun. That's right. He took a snowmobile right across his flooded fields. I've seen people do that to lakes, but never a field before. I'll have more on your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue praising the president via Twitter.
You know, President Trump committed to donating his salary to a worthy cause. In this quarter, he's donated his first quarter salary to the USDA for the benefit of those kids out here who may not have an opportunity to study agriculture.
Perdue says the first quarter paycheck totals $100,000. After another turbulent week, what did traders expect to see in markets as we round out June? Insights and analysis coming up next. And later, the planting season has been tough on equipment this year, but meet an Iowa farmer finding a way to get the job done.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
The markets remain focused on the wet, cool weather and what this week's USDA acreage report will show. Here's an update from the CME.
Today in the grain market, soybeans were lower. I think the weekend profit taking started, and futures, did get a nice lift from export sales yesterday, and it was just in time to take something off the table. A lot of the traders just don't want to hang on to it over the weekend. We're also at kind of like the triple witching hour because it's a July expiration in options, and sometimes we have a little of the tail wagging the dog. Shipments are at like a 78% level, and that's the lowest since 1991. Yikes. With soybeans. So we're still suffering from the problem with the trade deal. And it seems like corn also was mixed today. And actually, I think that staying a little bit lower, perhaps that rally has totally run its course and it's kind of leveling off somewhat. We have to watch out though, because the expiration here really needs to stay below that 450 mark because of there's about 20,000+ open interest in options. That could definitely affect the close and affect where we're going to head over the weekend and starting Monday morning. There could be a big scramble there. We're going to watch out for that. In the wheat market, it was firm. The global weather issues do persist right now. There is dryness in Russia and the Ukraine. We'll see how Monday morning wraps up here with this final day of November options.
Angie Setzer, Citizens Grain, and Sam Hudson with Corn Belt Marketing, our guest today. All right, let's talk about what we learned last week as we prepare for kind of the last week of June. Angie, what was your takeaway from last week?
Is saying I learned less than I thought I knew the week prior reasonable?
Right. Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I learned several definitions of 100%.
Right.
And I learned that as long as you give it your all, you're okay. I don't know. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, we learned less last week.
Yeah.
The market, a lot of folks are like, why isn't this market doing what I think it should do? So I think we kind of reiterate the fact that the market will do whatever it wants to do. And really, when it comes down to it, we have a boatload of unknowns a historical level of unknowns for the end of June at this point in time, and that's only probably going to continue.
Sam, there's so many things we don't know, right? I mean, from acreage to production to, how much more are we even going to plant?
Yeah, and I think as the weather unfolds in the summer, it's going to continue to be a weather-driven market. With the latency of the crop, if we end up with an Indian summer and you end up with a decent amount of corn acres, who knows? What could we still produce out here if you get an early freeze on the flip side? So a long road here. I think you're going to have some sort of an artificial floor in prices either way. But I think over the last week, what we've learned is that the bean acres could be just as much risk, if not more, compared to corn with the weather window that opened up a couple weeks ago.
Real quick from both of you, what are you watching this week?
Waiting for the USDA numbers, watching what the market does ahead of that, taking advantage of any opportunities if I have anyone that wants to look at some upside coverage against what they've have sold, if we have any dips or anything like that, really.
Yeah, what about you, Sam?
I think focus on the merchandising and logistics. We know at some point old crop has to come anyways, unless you're one of the growers that doesn't have any crop in the ground and you're going to carry it over. Be mindful of what's available there, because there is still a decent amount of inventory out there that will have to come to market whether the farmer likes it or not, regardless of where the price is. It doesn't mean you can't defend yourself on the board if you need to, but have a known value out there so that you can cash the check and you know what it means to you.
All right, well, I appreciate you both for being here, getting us started this week. We'll be back for more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
For help solving your cash grain problems, call Angie Setzer with Citizens LLC at 800-858-3738. For marketing advice, call Sam Hudson with Corn Belt Marketing at 800-655-3380. The IBM Watson Decision Platform for Agriculture, helping to feed a hungry world with the power of AI.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, we look at the weather map here and rainfall over the past week. Really, I-70, that corridor, getting tons of rain.
It really did seem like it. I will say this, I don't expect anything like this when we show this map next week. Thank goodness. Now you do have to remember this only takes us through this past Friday mid-afternoon. Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, we've had some more complexes of thunderstorms through parts of the upper Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley. So could have even added to this. But when you zoom in on some of the heavier amounts, you'll see a little bit of purple showing up in places there. That's 8 inches plus in places in northeastern Texas. Again, this is last Saturday through this past Friday, going north to like the I-70 corridor that Clinton talked about. In Kansas and Nebraska, it's a little south of north of the I-70 corridor, but there's also this huge area southeast of Wichita. And then you can just track those areas across central Illinois, southern Indiana, and into the eastern Ohio Valley with just huge amounts of rain. It has not been a good spring, obviously, in most of farm country. Jet stream shows a change, though. Now, we had a change in the overall weather pattern about 3 weeks ago, but we kind of went back into a wet pattern, totally different type, but a wet pattern nonetheless. You will notice the first storm system moving away, and by Wednesday, it's into eastern Canada, and it's mainly kind of zonal across the northern tier of states, except for the trough out west. So that's where a lot of the moisture is going to be flowing, as you'll see in my map coming up. But there's a huge ridge by the end of the week. Most of the plains, even into the southern Great Lakes and the mid-Atlantic states, where the heat really does build, and that's perhaps going to hold a while. There will be some cooler air coming into the eastern lakes and the northeast as we head into early next week, but still, this is the first time that we've seen the heat come and hold for a little while. So temperatures this week, I'm going above normal for most of the east, northern plains, back into the Four Corner region, below normal mainly because of wet ground for Oklahoma and Texas, and below normal out west. Precipitation this week, that's the only above normal area I'm showing. Northern Mississippi Valley into southern Canada, below normal in the east and most of the west. 30-day outlook for temperatures, still below normal in the middle of the country, above normal around the fringes, obviously, east and west coast. 30-day outlook for precip from the northern Rockies into the central Mississippi Valley. I'm still going above normal overall, below normal for the northeast and Florida. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We head to Lakeview, Oregon, first of all. Comfortable with lots of sunshine today, high of 76. El Dorado, Arkansas, I should say, muggy with showers and a thunderstorm, high of 87. And Charlotte, North Carolina, hot. Good deal of sunshine, high of 94.
Here's an unusual crime. Used cooking oil isn't the easiest to get rid of, but federal agents say they've busted a ring of thieves accused of stealing nearly $4 million worth. Authorities say it involved 21 people targeting restaurants in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia over 5 years. The used cooking oil, known as yellow grease, being pumped from restaurant storage tanks into trucks and then shipped around the country. USDA says 100 pounds of yellow grease sells for about $25. Now, a statement from a U.S. attorney says the oil rendering industry loses between $45 and $75 million to oil theft each year. The suspects, they face conspiracy and money laundering charges. Harvest is the culmination of the growing season. Well, up next, Machinery Pete could have you riding in style. Combines and combine prices after the break. And later, put the tools away. This Iowa farmer's going back to basics. A little classic horsepower today in the country. It's harvest season for winter grains, and Machinery Pete has a few combines worth taking a look at. Here's Pete.
What an amazing week for older combines last week, folks. Now, it started off, I was at the Classic Green reunion, and I met a young Nebraska man who owns this 1975 John Deere 4400 combine. And he bought it last fall on an auction. It has only 480 hours on it, and he had it on display right next to a 2018 John Deere S770. Pretty cool. Now, I'm sure you heard last Tuesday about the online estate auction up in Beardsley, Minnesota, where this 1983 John Deere 8820 combine, amazingly never been to the field, only 15.5 engine hours on it, sold for $75,500. And on that same auction was this 1990 John Deere 9600. This thing, 311 engine hours on it, sold for $68,000. Now, word is that both those combines on that auction were bought by a guy from Texas who plans to put them in the field down there, so no museum for those babies. Now, the next day, a young farmer in Alberta, Canada sent me a clip of their versatile 420 combine, very rare, that hadn't been run almost 20 years. They got it running, sent me a video clip of it harvesting barley. And the next day, folks, last Thursday, consignment auction, West Central Illinois, this 1998 Case IH 2344, just over 2,500 engine hours on it. And I don't see many 2344s around. This thing sold at auction for $36,000. Now, we have blogs and videos on all these combines for you right at machinerypete.com.
Thanks, Greg. That's not the only kind of horsepower doing field work this season. We're off to Iowa to meet a farmer still doing his job the old-fashioned way. For one Northwest Iowa farmer, planting season doesn't mean greasing up the tractor. It means hooking up the horses. Al Jones has that story from Bronson.
Hey, boys. Yep.
75 years ago, Darwin Brink planted crops this way because he had to. Today he does it because he loves to.
It's quiet. There's no noise. All you hear is the tug chain rattle, metal arc sing. Let the rest of the world go by. Get up.
So into the ground the soybeans go. Compliments Buck and Barney on the other end of the reins. Pulling a 1920s era planter that Darwin and son Dave bought for $15.
Is it hard to keep the line straight, Darwin?
It depends on your horses. If you've got a good walking team that walks together, it ain't bad. But if you get one that jiggles around, then it's bad.
This would be impressive for anyone to be doing it, but it's made all the more so when you consider Darwin is 90 years old.
I'm retired. What should I do? I enjoy doing it. I enjoy very much with a good team of horses.
Does planting this way do as good a job as planting with a tractor?
Sure, yeah. We get the seeds in the ground, that's all that's necessary.
I suppose you get a little bit of natural fertilizer out of them too.
Yeah, you do.
Are you doing it to grow a crop or are you doing it just to have fun?
Well, both. Both, yeah. Try and make your hobby pay. You know, it's not for everybody. I understand that. But I enjoy it.
Well, on a day like this, it's hard not to enjoy it.
You ain't just a kid. Yep.
He may plant the crops at a slower pace, but Darwin is not slowing down. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Al Jones.
Thanks, Al. Darwin plants about 50 acres of corn and soybeans with his horses and with the help of his son, Dave. He also uses the horse team to mow hay, pull a buggy, and even pull a sleigh in the winter. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in on this Monday morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.